Let's go live. Okay, we are live. So, hello everyone. I am Sanjay Gupta. I welcome you back on Skill Horizon YouTube channel, and we are having one more episode of ServiceNow. And I have Kunal with me. Kunal, once again, welcome on the channel.
Thanks, Sanjay.
Okay, so like you can see Skill Horizon website and the email ID. So we are doing this bootcamp related to ServiceNow so that you can get a familiarity like how things works in ServiceNow. And initially we are doing the sessions which are related to admin, and then we will be doing some session on the development side as well. And these are introductory sessions; those you can go through. You can have the knowledge of ServiceNow, and later on, like if you want to become job ready, so we will be starting our online and offline programs as well in ServiceNow, similar to Salesforce, which are quite popular at Skill Horizon. Okay, so you can visit the website, you can go through the course curriculum. So maybe we are planning to start them from November, or if not, then for sure from January. Okay, so stay tuned for more information, and I think we can start with today's session. So Kunal, what we are going to discuss today?
Thanks, Sanjay. We'll start and we'll recap what we did last few sessions, and quickly then we'll jump to security,
Okay.
one of the most important topics in today's world.
Okay, perfect. I think you can start.
All right. So I'll just recap what we have done, what we have covered in last three sessions. We started with ServiceNow, what it is, how it has become such a big enterprise application, and we covered application basics. We created a new application. Then we went into the form view, list view, tables, form, and list configuration, field configuration, and then we jump to catalog items. And since ServiceNow is an ITSM giant, how the catalog item works, how can you create a new catalog item, what is the workflow that works behind the catalog item, how approvals work, and we did a small demo on that. Now we're talking about security. One of the most important reason why big ticket companies, Fortune 500 company would approach companies like Salesforce, ServiceNow, Atlassian, Freshworks. Why wouldn't they make their own solutions in-house? They have enough engineers to do that, right? But they don't. And the reason behind that is one of the major reasons behind that is security. Today, if I were to write my own software, I need developers, and then I need testers, and then I need someone who can make sure that my data is not leaked. And given that companies like Meta, 23andMe, Google, Yahoo have their data leaked. So if someone says, okay, you use my platform and I will make sure your data is not leaked, everybody jumps to the back and say, okay, let's do that. And that is the reason ServiceNow has really good features related to security. Now, let us start with what security is, and not necessarily ServiceNow, but everywhere. For example, if you visit a site like thehindu.com, every news article that you see is public. You can go click on it and just read. And that would be a scenario one in our image here. So there's public data. You can look at it, you can read, you can copy it. There is no restriction on it. Another example would be Wikipedia. But then there are some information that are hidden behind logins. For example, you have a Google account, so you can log into Gmail. Now, Gmail or Google store all of the emails into a common file, common database. It's not like that Sanjay has its own database and Kunal has its own database. Everything is stored within a single database. But you only can access the data that pertains to your account. And that is what is the part second. So some data is available to you and some data is available to someone else. And that depends on you, your account role, and the conditions that control everything around it. The third part is which is hidden for everyone. For example, passwords stored Nobody's able to see what data it contains. For example, Google saves your password not in text, but in encrypted text. So even if Google wanted to see what your password is, they are not able to see it. And that is locked for everyone. And why security is so important? Apart from that, you actually garnered bad reputation from your users. You actually have legal obligation to save data from being leaked. Now, on your screen, you can see multiple people who have been penalized in last 3, 4 years in billions of dollars, millions of dollars, just because they couldn't manage their database and its security. Meta from Texas and Meta in Ireland, in total, they have paid more than $2.6 billion. And they did not even leak data. The only issue with Meta Ireland was that they did not comply to GDPR regulations. Now, imagine if you are starting out and you are starting out with a new system, or I'll design it in JavaScript, but you don't even know what GDPR stands for. So if someone finds out and someone sues you, then you are in for a surprise. These are the companies which were penalized recently, and these penalties are motivation enough for people to invest heavily in security. And in these cases, big ticket platforms like ServiceNow, Salesforce, Atlassian come into place, which take care of these things for you. Now, if you remember, we have gone through this. Whenever you have a table, you have this list view. Now, as ACL, actually, I'll just written the shortcut, but yeah, ACL is access control list. And this is how you gain access to some database and the data inside it. So if, for example, if I were to go to our table, let's go to the table, show list. I can see 2 rows here, which means I have access to these 2 rows here. I can see all the fields. That means I have access to all these fields. How does ServiceNow decide who has access and how that process flows? Is that on the first outset, ServiceNow checks, does this user have access to this row? That is first row. If I have access to it, after that, is there a restriction on individual field? For example, open. Is Kunal as a user allowed to see this field? Now, there can be a situation where I have access to the row, but not to the field. In that case, I would be able to see every other field, but not this. So how the security flows? Check for row, and second comes check for individual field. Now, we will look at ACL. We'll go to our table configuration. You can click on these 3 dots, or you can right-click on the gray bar. Sorry, right-click here, configure, table, and scroll down to access control. This table has 4 ACLs on it, one for each operation. Let's zoom in. One is for write. First start with create, read, write, and delete. Create would mean that you are able to create a new row into this database. Read is if you're able to read the database. Write is when you're able to update a record. Now, you could have a condition where you can create a record, but cannot write on it, which means you could create new records. Once you created it, you cannot update it. And last but not least is the delete record. Now we'll open the read record and see how it works out. Okay, one thing that we missed out is that for managing ACLs, you need a special permission. Despite the fact I'm an administrator, I'm still not able to edit these. And to edit, I need to elevate myself to security admin. Why is it there? It is just a second check for you. Are you sure you want to become security admin? Are you sure you want to dabble into ACLs? Okay, and you click on it and update. This escalation or elevation will go away once you log out. So now that I have elevated privileges, you can see there's an up arrow over my profile and this red bar indicating that you are in danger zone, that you have elevated privileges everywhere. Now coming to the ACL, this ACL is of type record, that it pertains to a record on a table. The operation that I'm trying to do is read. Is this active? Yes, this is active. Decision type. This is a bit more complicated, bit more advanced topic. So we're going to skip on this. Admin overrides is a very important, which means if I was somehow restrict read only to a particular role, and if I do not click this, even admin won't be able to read this. But ServiceNow by default gives you this checkbox, and it kind of makes sense to keep it there. Now, we are looking at a record. Which table? Student record table. And which field? For now, we're just looking at the row level security, and that is why we have put it at none. What are the conditions that control this? That the user should have this role on their user record. There are more conditions, but we'll come to that later. For now, if you have this user role, or if you are an admin, you should be able to see each and every record on this table. Since we are admin, we are able to see this. Now, we will go back to our PPT. Right. So this is how ACL is analyzed and what's the anatomy of this. The first comes user request. I, as a user, I requested that I want to see this record of this table. First thing that is checked is the condition. Do you have this role? Do I have this role? No, but I'm an admin, so it is overridden. But if you are not an admin, first thing that ServiceNow will say is that, is this user with this role? If yes, you get to step 2. If no, you fail, and the analysis is over at this point. You can also have dynamic condition, which means I could add conditions here. For example, if the name starts with Kunal, and in that case, when this condition is analyzed, first thing is analyze this, that this ACL would only be applicable to rows where the name starts with Kunal. If not, this ACL does not apply, and you're immediately thrown out of the loop and you won't be able to access the record. Next comes user role that we have already discussed. We'll delete this for now. And third, and bit more advanced, is the scripting. I need to save this so that I would be able to access the script part. Okay. So we are here, and that was still did not show. All right. Now, multiple places in ServiceNow, you'll find that they have the scripts option. Now, in this particular case, I need to return true, which means if I were to return true in this script, this would be analyzed as that access has to be granted to the user. If I were to say return false, and simply user will never be able to access it. Now, why is this present? For advanced condition. For example, if I want to see on this one, I want to see if the email address has example.com in it and the user starts with Kunal, then I would say yes. If not, no. Those kind of advanced script analysis, and on basis of this, ACL either is approved or denied. We will now, and on these three conditions, if everything returns true or it is evaluated to be true, you are granted access. If any of it is false, access is denied, which means by default, ServiceNow does not want you to access record only after evaluating all three conditions. And if all come out to true, then you get the access. So we'll go back to our table and we will create a new ACL. Let's do that. Let's close this, leave page. We'll duplicate this page so that we want to create a new ACL for read. We will remove admin overrides for now. And we'll add role title. And that's it. Now, ServiceNow is confirming with you that on rule level, there is another ACL that already exists. And now you're adding a new ACL for the same thing. What does that mean is that either of these two ACLs, if it is evaluated to true, you would have access to it. We are sure, so we'll say continue. All right, now we will find a user who has ITIL role. Sysuser is the name of the user table, and .list means it will open the list. And if you type list in caps, it will open that in a new tab. Let's say if able tutor has ITIL role, he does not. Okay. I thought he would have, but again, no, this will take a little too long. Let's search for user roles. Okay, and we'll search for role, ITIL, and ITIL has 52 members in it. Let's pick Ron Kettering. And I'll take filter out. And this user has ITIL role. Okay, so we will now impersonate this user by going here, impersonate user, and Ron Kettering. Actually, we should have opened that report first. Let me see. Now we're logged in as Ron Kettering. We will duplicate this tab where it will be reloaded, and they are able to see these records. Now, if I were to change impersonate to someone else who did not have, for example, Abraham Lincoln, and if I were to refresh this page, they don't see anything. Security constraints prevent access to requested page. Very simple. Let's go back and add impersonation. Now we are on this table and we will look at the ACL that we created. Oh, we have it here. So the condition was that you have to be ITIL to able to see the records. Now, to explore field level access, we'll create two new fields. Configure table. We'll create state string 20. We will create assigned to who is assigned this request, who would be working on this request. Assigned to, we'll make it reference field, and reference to is user, sys user, that's the name of our table. And that's it. We will save this record, and this should create two new fields here. Two new fields have been added to this table, and we can assign it to anyone, but we will assign it to Ron Catherine. Okay, so now we have added these two fields. Now what we want is that this field state should be read only to everyone else but the person who is assigned to, right? Let's do that. We'll go here and we'll create a new ACL to write. Right. We will remove admin because we don't want admins to touch it either. But state, and the condition is assigned to. Now, how do I know who is logged in? There's a special condition for that, and that is dynamic me. So this ACL will evaluate to true if I am the one who is assigned to this, and we'll add role as item. We know Ron Pattern has that. So let us recap. We are creating a new ACL, which is for write on the field state. And the condition is that I am the person who is this request assigned to. And as a user, I should have ITIL role. And we'll submit this. Now it is saying that on write, there is a previous ACL, but for state, we are creating a new one, which is this. So we'll say continue. We are happy with that. And now I would reload this page. And I cannot click on this. I cannot change this. But if I go here, impersonate and Ron Catering, and go back to that record, I'm able to use this. Closed state, and I can save it. And let's duplicate this tab and add impersonation to go back to. Oh, let's use SN utils. If you remember, I told about this slash on the keyboard, and then you say IMP for impersonate, and you click on this, and it will give you the options. What options? Which are the user that you want to impersonate? But the first option is stop impersonating and go back as admin. I'll click on that. And we are back as the system administrator. But yet I cannot write to this field. We'll create another ACL, and that is for delete. But we'll do something that was the third condition, which was that nobody should be able to delete this. I mean, no one. So we'll create a new ACL. delete. Actually, we should have edited the one we have already, because if not, that will work in place of this one. This one will open in new tab. Right? And we will make it advanced, and we'll say return false. This is not save. Ideally, now this button would go away. Let us see what happens. And that button goes away, which means even as security admin, I am not able to delete this record. Now, there's another thing that was recently introduced in ServiceNow, and that is really helpful for administrators. And that is, how do you know why I do not have access to this button, delete button? I'm admin, I should have access to everything, right? But no, not really. So what we do is we search for access, analyze, and we go and analyze permissions. Right. This is more like a simulator, which will simulate the conditions that you have and will give you exact reason why you have the access or you do not have the access. Right. So for example, we are trying to analyze by user, and let's select, for example, Ron Catering, this user. Are we talking about a table record? Yes. Which table? Student request. Oh, sorry. Student request. And are we talking about a specific record? Yes, we're talking about this record. And I don't care about the field. I will simply click on the evaluate access. Now ServiceNow will go through all the ACLs and will let me know what is that I'm able to do and what are the things that I'm not able to do. This is a warning. We'll come back to that. But yeah, this is actually a good example of a complicated ACLs. So I am, as Ron Ketting, I am able to create, read, write. There are more than these four kind of ACLs, but we're focusing on that. But on delete, it clearly says that you are blocked, which means you cannot delete it. Now, this comes up again and again in larger organization as to understand what is that went wrong. Now, for example, what we've done is we have simply used a user, but in place of that, you could actually choose a role and title. Oh, spelling is wrong. Student request, record this, and then evaluate. Now, if you remember, we had created a new ACL for read, and that is the only one that it passes. Delete is blocked for everyone, and ITIL does not have access to create, or write records. Since we created only one ACL, that is the only one that it passed. Everything else is locked for idle role. Oh, all right. So I think that's all that we had to cover for security.
Okay, so is there anything else in security, or is it complete?
Well, this is a starter, obviously.
Okay.
Security can become extremely complicated. Like I said, that kind of ACL is not just really create. You can also come up to functions. For example, the script we wrote, we can write ACLs on that if someone is able to execute that JavaScript or not. Then save as template, add to list. Are you able to report on this? Are you able to personalize choices for you? So there are multiple layers and multiple ways to block this. And for example, decision type. What we talked about is that the example that we shared is that by default, ServiceNow doesn't want you to access it. And only if everything passes, then it is allow, and that is called allow if. But deny unless is a very different game altogether, where it is more aggressively denying you only and only if you pass this very small amount of conditions, you are able to access it. If not, nothing. And it kind of overtakes even allow if. So if even if you pass all the ACL allow if, but deny unless it denies you, then you're out. And we did not cover this part. This can actually be very, very important and very powerful tool, although this is not something that is recommended because what happens is that for each record, this is evaluated. Now, in this particular, I could actually go and look up each and every incident that we have. So essentially what will happen is that for each row access, there would be a MySQL call to this table. So yeah, this is not something which is recommended normally. And this was the reason when I said this alert icon is that presence of a script in ACL. The problem with scripting ACL is, again, because you can call to database, you can make SQL calls that kind of slows down the whole system if not managed properly. So yeah, security is again very big, but we have just covered the basics of it. And as an administrator, this should suffice. And as a developer, we will go in much deep.
Okay, perfect. Yep, so I think we are good, and we'll be having one more session on Thursday. So, what
Yeah.
topic we are going to cover in that session?
I'm planning to cover reporting in that. Reporting is a major part in any organization, and we'll cover how reports are made, how can you share it, how PDFs are generated, how can you schedule a report, things like that. Yeah, it's a good topic, and is even better for administrator, which who are not necessarily developers, but they can always dabble into creating reports.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. Because I remember in Salesforce also we have reports and dashboards. So I think for
Yeah.
analysis purpose, these are very
Oh yeah.
helpful. Yep.
Yeah.
And like in Salesforce, we have automation which is through flows. So in ServiceNow, do we have any automation that administrator will be configuring without any code?
We do have a point and click system. Initially, it was called Workflow,
Okay.
but now we have a newer version that is called Flows,
Okay.
same as Salesforce. But
But
yeah, that is something that normally is not with administrator, but we can cover that briefly. Maybe next week, Tuesday, we can cover that briefly.
yeah, a little bit idea if we can give so that viewers
Yeah,
can.
we can do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Okay, perfect. So we are good for today, and
Yeah.
thank you, Kunal, for sharing all the information with the viewers. And thank you, guys, those who watched live and those who are watching the recording. Thanks to you as well. And stay tuned for more information about ServiceNow. So we'll be sharing all the details in different social media platforms regarding the job readiness program, because nowadays ServiceNow is having lots of job opportunities. So parallelly, like with Salesforce, we are trying to build some more opportunities for you guys so that you can learn ServiceNow and then you can have more job opportunities. Okay. Yep. So thank you. Bye everyone.
Thank
See
you
you in the
guys.
next section.
Bye.